Alan, speaking of Torah and going from one extreme to the other, what is the role you see Chabad playing in today's world?
Oh, Chabad is just amazing. I was recently, I'm one of the people who is supporting an enterprise in Israel. It's called Space IL, and it's a group of individuals, not the government, who are trying to become the first people other than the United States and the major, to send a rocket ship to the moon. And they're working very hard on it. And the other day there was a big event, and they showed what it would look like. And there's this rocket landing on the moon. And I was sure when they opened up the rocket, a Chabad rabbi would walk out. Because we know that the first person on the moon will be a Chabad rabbi. He'll be waiting for the rest of us to arrive. I first really encountered Chabad, well, I first encountered Chabad in 1951 when my closest friend was a young man named Tzvi Groner. We were in high school together. And his uncle was the Rebbe's personal assistant, personal secretary. And we several times went over to the Eastern Parkway headquarters just to have lunch with his uncle. And this young man came out a few times. The young man had just been made the Rebbe. I think he was made the Rebbe in 49 or 50. This was 51, 52, 53. He would come out and give me a little bechina, a little test about what we were learning. And he was just the nicest man. But I didn't know who he was. I just knew he was a rabbi in the local area. And then, of course, I've had many, many encounters with Chabad over the years. As was mentioned, I'm the faculty advisor to Chabad at Harvard. And they do just absolutely remarkable work. My next encounter with them was when I was in the Soviet Union in the 1970s. I went to the Soviet Union on a number of occasions to represent dissidents. And I would go to not only Moscow, but I'd go to smaller areas, and I'd be on this little Aeroflot plane, and there'd be me and a Chabad rabbi, inevitably, because everywhere there were Jews, there was always a Chabad rabbi. Everywhere there were Jewish prisoners, there was a Chabad rabbi and a Jewish lawyer, hopefully. And so they do absolutely remarkable work, and they do work on behalf of prisoners, they do work on behalf of students, they do work that just is amazing and remarkable. I've told the Harvard Business School they should do a program on how Chabad, the business plan of Chabad, how they are able to get these remarkable shluchim, all of whom are charismatic and wonderful and non-judgmental, and how they have spread their word and spread their aura all over the world. It's just amazing. I was in Cambodia, and there were a group of Chabad rabbis in the little place with the elephants, just elephants and a few Jews and Chabad. And anywhere you go, there's Chabad. So my yarmulke, I won't say my yarmulke is off, my yarmulke is on, but for Chabad.
Well, here we are discussing elephants and Chabad, but we have to also talk about your books. You've written about 30 books, and you have a new one, actually. Tell us about it.
Well, I love writing. I write every day. There are people in this audience who would probably be very surprised to know that I write books, because I was a terrible high school student. I have to tell you the secret. I was a real bum in high school, and there are a few people here who know that from personal experiences. And I almost didn't get into college. I made it by the skin of my teeth. My Rabbi Zuraf, called me in one day and said, Dershowitz, you got a good mouth on you, but brain not so much. So you should figure out, this is an Orthodox rabbi, you should figure out something you can do using your mouth, but not your brain. He said, I have two suggestions. One, you could be a lawyer, or second, you could be a conservative rabbi. He couldn't even pronounce the word reform. But I wasn't smart enough to be a rabbi, so I became a lawyer. And I love to write. I'm just finishing my 32nd book in 33 years, so it's almost a book a year. A lot of my books are about Israel. I wrote, The Case for Israel, The Case for Peace, The Case Against Israel's Enemies, The Case for Moral Clarity. I have a book here that I'll be signing afterward, called Terror Tunnels, The Case for Israel's Just War Against Hamas, that I wrote this summer when we were the first people allowed into the tunnels before the war began. I actually was there before almost any media person was there. I saw the tunnels. I had dinner a few nights later with the Prime Minister, and I told him about the experience of being in the tunnels. It was clear to me that Israel would have to stop. We thought there were 25 tunnels. There were something like 45 tunnels like that. And they were all tunnels of death. They weren't tunnels used to bring products. They were only tunnels used to send death squads. The tunnel I was in was just yards away from a kibbutz kindergarten with 50 some odd children in the kindergarten. They were the targets. And there was dynamite in the tunnels. There were little train tracks to kidnap people, to take their bodies after they've been killed, to trade them. And so I wrote a book about that. And my newest book, as I mentioned, is going to be about Abraham, the world's first but certainly not last Jewish lawyer. What I wanted to do in my retirement time was to write more and more books. As I said, I love writing. And I write because I want people to read my books. This book, Terror Tunnels, the first one I did is an electronic book, an ebook. And as a result of that, I was able to get it out. I finished writing it just when the war was over. And I was able to get it out online within about a month after the war was over, when still there was some fighting going on, and then they were able to publish it in hardcover form about 2 months later. But it's amazing with today's technology. I get up in the morning at 8 o'clock, I watch the news, and I say at 8:15 to my wife, I have to write a column about this. And I sit down, I write it, I finish it by 10. I send it in to my secretary, she sends it in, and by 11 it's online. So from 8 in the morning to 11, 3 hours from the idea to getting it out and having people read it. It's just amazing what the technology allows you to do, and it just keeps me on my toes because I have at least one good idea a day, I hope, and I like to put those ideas into 1,000 words and send it out. So I love writing, I love reading, I love the academic life. I miss my students. This is the first year in 50 years I haven't taught. First time in 50 years I haven't taught. You must miss your students too. I just loved, I taught both college and law school. So I used to teach 18-year-old kids a course called Where Does Your Morality Come From? And it was a way of exploring with young kids right out of high school where their morality comes from, religion, family, experience. And I miss the teaching, but the writing kind of makes up for it a little bit. And talking to audiences like you makes me very happy and very comfortable. And if there is time, I'd love to take at least a couple of questions from you to see what's on your mind.
Alan, this has been a great privilege and a great pleasure. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much, and good luck on your book.